My name is Michael, and this story is real as I lived it, or at least, as I hope it is. I used to work as a night guard in an old building on the edge of the city. The place had been abandoned for years. No one lived there except for one apartment on the third floor. Its owner was a man named John. I didn't know much about him. He lived alone, rarely left, and every time I saw him, he smiled a cold smile that never reached his eyes. On my first night, John passed by me at the entrance. He stopped, looked straight at me, and said quietly, "If you hear knocking on the door at midnight, don't open it." Then he slowly climbed the stairs, as if his steps were heavier than his body. I laughed it off, thinking he was joking, but later, I wished I had taken his words seriously. A week passed quietly. Nothing happened. The building was silent, and the nights there felt longer than usual. Every night at exactly midnight, I would hear faint footsteps on the upper floor, but they always stopped the moment I opened the stairwell door. I convinced myself they were just hallucinations caused by loneliness. On the 8th night, everything began. It was 2:03 a.m. I was sitting in the guard room, watching the old cameras that showed blurry footage. Suddenly, I heard knocking on the main door. Slow, steady, just 3 knocks. I froze in my chair. John's warning echoed in my head. "If you hear knocking on the door at midnight, don't open it." I tried to convince myself that maybe someone was lost or needed help. But the knocking came again, 3 knocks, silence, then 3 more. The exact same rhythm, as if it wasn't human, but something trying to imitate humans. I stood up slowly and approached the door. I looked through the peephole and saw no one. The street outside was completely empty. I stepped back, my heart pounding violently. Then suddenly, a voice came from behind me. "Don't open it." I turned around fast. John was standing at the end of the hallway. I hadn't heard him come down the stairs, and I hadn't seen him on the cameras. He was just there, as if he had been standing there the whole time. He walked toward me slowly and said, "If you open it, it will come in, and once it does, it will never leave." I asked with a trembling voice, "Who?" But he didn't answer. He only gave that same cold smile, then turned and went back upstairs without making a single sound. The knocking stopped instantly. I thought it was over, but minutes later, the cameras began to glitch. The screen showing the third floor displayed a shadow standing in front of John's apartment, a tall, thin shadow with its head tilted at an unnatural angle. I couldn't resist. I climbed the stairs slowly, each step creaking loudly. When I reached the third floor, the hallway was dark and the light flickered weakly. John's apartment door was closed, but I heard faint whispering from inside. I knocked gently, no answer. I pressed my ear against the door and heard 2 voices. One was John's voice, the other sounded exactly like him, but deeper, distorted, as if coming from a deep well. The distorted voice said, "Let him in, it's his turn now." I stepped back in terror. At that moment, the door slowly opened, without anyone touching it. I saw John standing inside, but behind him in the corner of the room, there was another person who looked exactly like him. Same face, same features, but his eyes were completely black, no white at all. The real John looked at me in fear and said, "Run, it hasn't found a body yet." Before I could react, the double stepped forward. When it moved, I heard no footsteps, as if it didn't touch the ground. I slammed the door shut and ran toward the stairs. Behind me, I could hear a low laugh, John's laugh, but stretched and slow in a horrifying way. I ran down to the guard room, locked the door, and sat there shaking until morning. At first light, I went up with the police to the third floor, but John's apartment was empty. No furniture, no belongings, no one had lived there for years, according to the building records. They said I was just stressed, that loneliness can play tricks on the mind. I quit the job that same day. Months passed. I tried to forget what happened, but one cold night while I was in my new apartment, I heard 3 knocks on my door, the same rhythm, the same slow pace. I froze. I remembered John's warning, and I didn't open. But what made my blood run cold wasn't the knocking. It was the voice coming from the hallway outside my apartment, a voice I knew very well. "It's your turn now, don't open for him." I slowly approached the peephole and looked. John was standing outside, smiling. But right behind him stood another person who looked exactly like me. Same face, same features, and eyes completely black. And since that night, I no longer know if I'm the one telling this story, or the thing that finally found a body and is pretending to be me.